What up, son? What up? Grind and Pivot, Louis Max. In comedy, Brett Eidman is a Swiss Army knife. He's been Bozo the Clown. He was one of the most popular DJs on the New York City bar bat mitzvah circuit. He has done stand-up, sketch. He has gone places in comedy where few have gone. Now Brett is a subject of an award-winning short documentary film in the name of comedy, which is available on Amazon Prime. I got the chance to speak with Brett about his past, his unique career path, and his viral video which turned everything upside down. Hope you enjoy it. Peace.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
What up, son? What up? Louis Max, Grind and Pivot. Today, we have a character who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. A great entertainer, a superstar salesman, and an all-out funny guy. In the name of comedy, Mr. Brett Eidman. How you doing, my man?
Good. How are you, Louis? And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it. I've been juiced up ever since Mr. John Hart. Shout out Mr. John Hart.
The legendary John Hart.
The legendary in his own mind, John Hart. Absolutely. How you making out with all this crazy challenging unrest and COVID stuff for the last couple of months? Talk to me a little bit.
It's been a little crazy in a weird way. There's a part of it that I'm enjoying, that the world has slowed down a little bit. And I thought like life was like passing by so fast that it kind of like came to a screeching halt. And in a way I was kind of happy because I'm working on some things that I felt like I was falling behind. And this whole pandemic thing kind of, was like, all right, gives me a chance to catch up a little bit. I don't like to wear the mask when I have a cold, that just, it's like a snot generator. And it's really, I mean, I used to do that when I used to do Bozo the Clown. Maybe we'll get into that later. But,
we definitely will.
I used to wear this red nose, and if you had a running nose, I mean that nose would fill up, and it was pretty disgusting. But so we're getting through this thing. I think it's getting better in our area. I mean, other parts of the country are seeing the increases, but I think we're going to get there. We'll get there with time.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Yeah, no, I hear you about the halt in life a little bit. Unfortunately, of course, everybody's getting sick. We don't want the older folks and people getting sick at all. But I will say, probably like you and I, it gave us a chance to stop for a second and take hold of what's going on. I was loving it because I love social distancing. It was a beautiful thing. I was prepared for this, and at the same time, it was like I could stop for the last 40 years. Haven't really stopped. Right. For working, going crazy, the actual grind. And you're right. You were able to kind of catch up on some of those projects that you weren't really able to do, which I know.
Right. It reminds me of, I remember back in 2006 when my dad passed away, and it was a whole big scene at his house, and I was in the ambulance with him going to the hospital, but he already was gone. Mm-hmm. And I remember like at that time, that looking outside of the ambulance, watching people doing what they do all the time, that my world stopped and theirs kept going. And I'm like, you people have some nerve. Like, don't you know,
right.
That I am in pain here, I'm just going through a really rough time right now. I don't know how this is, and their life didn't miss a beat. The world didn't miss a beat. And, it's kind of weird, when you want to just say, stop for a moment and let's regroup and think about things and maybe smell the roses a little bit, that was the only time when I wanted the world to completely stop or maybe even go back a minute, just to go back to a better time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. I'm hoping that there will be some change starting now. It's going to take a long, long time, but let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
So I know you got a few irons in the fire. One is a classic one, which I'm going to discuss later. But you've done a variety of things throughout your career. Did you always aspire to be a comedian / entertainer? And did you really just want to be famous?
I think everybody wants to be famous, especially as a kid. I mean, I was never the kid at school that says, "Oh, I want to be a fireman when I get older. I want to be a cop when I get older." No, really didn't know how to answer that question. When I was in elementary school, I was watching The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and going to bed really late and waking up and going to school. And I remember getting in trouble in the lunchroom and the lunch lady like putting me up on a stage and I like, wow, now I'm in front of people. This is like I'm in heaven, and then so I started to bring in like little magic tricks. And that really ticked them off because now I'm entertaining the whole crowd, but I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to be embarrassed that I did something wrong to be up on the stage. And I was like enjoying it. They kicked me out of the lunchroom and then they sent me down to the principal's office. And I liked the principal, so that wasn't a punishment either. So I ate lunch with my principal. He's a really great guy. I used to have to bring him. I used to have to bring him chocolate bars. You remember those marathon bars they had like years ago? Yeah. So he liked those. So I used to bring those to lunch every day. And he just wanted those, and we sat and we had a great time.
Right? Did he he got you? Did he understand where you were coming from? But back then, what could he do? He was playing both sides, really. He had to.
Right, and he said, I'm a little off. I had learning disabilities and stuff, and I was hyperactive, and I didn't understand anything that was going on in the classroom. I kind of had the feeling there were bright kids, and then there were stupid kids, and I was kind of like in a stupid group. And I just accept that. And then finally they start, my parents like ran around like crazy, having me tested and going to all these different people, to have me tested. And they said, oh yeah, there's one guy they sent me to was, he was an Asian guy and I'll get in trouble again.
Right. Wow. Stop the presses.
Yeah. So he was going to test me. I was at a hospital. It was at a local hospital.
How old?
Oh God, I was.
What grade? Go by grade,
like
really.
4th grade.
Oh, so okay, that's early. Okay, 4th grade. Go ahead.
4th to 5th.
Okay.
So
in Brooklyn?
No, it was happening up in Rockland County.
Already up there.
Yeah,
wow.
I was already up here. Yeah.
Wow.
So
okay.
I didn't do good in Brooklyn either. I mean, it was my grades were terrible, but they thought like, well, maybe it will kick in at some point. So this doctor is asking me, like, he goes, he says, tell me what this means to you. I said, okay. He says, and he's like, people in grass houses shouldn't throw stones. So I'm like, people in grass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? I know what people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I know what that means. I think this is a trick question. So I said to the doctor, I don't know. I don't know what that means. So he says, all right, I'll be right back. He goes out and tells my parents that, Brett doesn't understand simple concepts. And my parents say, like, we have an example. And they said, people in grass houses shouldn't throw stones. Like, Brett, let's go home.
Right. Wrong. This is not going to fit. This is not going to fit.
This is not going to be good.
Wow. Yeah, so, that's amazing. By the way, just hearing that story, to me, you're way ahead of the curve. Back then I think people just didn't realize it, or, educators. I'm not going to go of what I think about certain educators. My mom was a teacher, but there were certain things.
Yeah.
Exactly. No disrespect to the teachers out there, those who do, and so forth and so on. But, I don't think they realized back then, or either, what really they had, in certain kids and certain different personalities. So I think that's pretty funny in 4th grade. That's pretty amazing. So go back for a second on the TV, because you were up late watching Carson, like a lot of people, like myself as well, of course, honeymooners and all that stuff back then. But Carson, who on the show do you remember was really a major influence besides Carson?
Well, I loved Rodney Dangerfield.
Okay, fantastic.
And when Don Rickles would come out, I thought he was the
hilarious,
greatest.
Of course.
And those are the people, and George Carlin. Those are the people that I really had to stay up late for.
Right.
If they were going to bring out Mac Davis or something like that, I could go to bed. But I. But with the comedians, I just loved the comedians, and Robert Klein. those guys. It just, they were entertaining. For me, as a kid, watching two people talking wasn't all that fun.
Right.
But when somebody came out and make Johnny laugh and carrying on and everything else, that was fun. They were having fun.
Yeah,
so I was having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It seemed like that. Well, Rickles, of course, Rodney was classic. David Brenner. At one point, I mean, all those guys, even with the women, with Carol Wayne,
right.
and and McMahon was, even Doc. What about Doc and Tommy Newsom? You're right.
Yeah, it was a great combination.
It was a great combination. Okay, so the old school guys like Rickles, Hackett, all those guys, when they came out, it was a party.
Right, and they understood that this is an entertainment show. You can't have a serious interview with somebody that goes a minute and a half, 2 minutes. It's not going to be. So they say, you know what? We know this is not really going to be much of an interview, so we're going to come out here and do shtick. And they were great. They were very well prepared, and they killed.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And you said the right word. I think entertainment.
Right.
That's really what they were. Of course, they were comedic guys. Some of the guys more acted. Even when Dean came out, Frank came out, Angie. I mean, when they all came out, it was. You're right. Burt was great. Absolutely. When they all came out, and you knew Carson was going to attack, it was such a beautiful thing because they would just kind of lay right into his path, and it would be over. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still have friends now. We talk about Carson. A good friend of mine is he tells me Carson's on now. I think on one of the cable shows late night. He goes, "Big show tonight, Carson. So and so is on," and I'm like, "Yeah, of course. I remember it absolutely." So let's go back to the beginning. So you grew up basically in Brooklyn, but then you went up to Rockland County as you just
going
told us.
Going into fourth grade.
Right. So going into fourth grade, your parents said basically Brooklyn was getting a little crazy. You were having a couple little problems, possibly going to the suburbs or upstate Westchester, Rockland would be better for you, correct?
Yeah. They also, they felt that I was being lost in the shuffle, like, in the public schools there. And also that it was not as safe anymore. It was getting dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted, for me, they wanted me to learn and they wanted me to be safe, and they felt like they weren't getting that there. So we ran away. And people that were living in Brooklyn at the time, they would either run to Long Island, they would run to Jersey or Westchester, Rockland, they all ran away. Some people stuck it out. And if you stuck it out, now you're living in a really happening place. Brooklyn
Tell me about it. Tell me. Brooklyn's off the charts. I mean, what part of Brooklyn did you actually grow up in? Do you remember the section, the area?
Well, they used to call it, I guess, the Bay Ridge section.
Oh, I know Bay. Okay, so Bay Ridge, yeah. It was tight. I mean, it was changing. It's still okay, but I got you. It's a little rough, I think your parents probably were more concerned about you just blossoming in a different environment. Thinking back now, I'm sure you look back on it too, because Bay Ridge is still probably okay, but it was a lot going on back then. There was a lot going on in all areas.
I'll just tell you, there was a friend of mine who lived across the alley, which you don't hear that much in Rockland County. Nobody says alley.
No, tell me that.
This kid Steven, and once again, I'm really little, and his last name was Tartaglia, and I had no idea. I'm a little kid. What's going on? But he was the first one on the block to have everything. He was the first person to have a TV and a console.
Bay Ridge?
Yeah,
Steven Tartaglia? I think I get it. I get this. Go ahead.
I mean, he had air conditioning in his house. And he had the first guy to have a color TV set. He had this, he had that. I mean, all the best games you can get. And like, wow, they're doing something right.
Yeah, I got that. Definitely.
It's
that's still going on.
I had no idea. It's nice to be young and ignorant.
It really is. Absolutely. Youth is wasted on the young, as they say. So your dad, I know he was a real special guy. I know a little bit about him. And tell us a little bit about him, a little bit more. So what was his influence in you? And I know he was disabled in a certain way, so maybe you could shed some light on what his disability was and how you think his disability affected you in any way.
My dad, when he turned 13, got polio. So he spent 2 years in now it's called the Helen Hayes Hospital, and it used to be called just a rehabilitation, and it's up in Haverstraw, which is Rockland County also.
Mm-hmm.
So he spent 2 years in the hospital and I think about 8 months in an iron lung. And while he was in the hospital, they had different sounds that they would hear when they knew when somebody passed away. You would hear they would close all the doors, and then they had to wheel somebody out. Like they had they knew every little noise that would go on in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But he was one of the lucky ones that survived, and then the other folks that survived ended up being handicapped. So my dad had lost use of his right arm. There was muscle in there, but the muscles were dead. So he'd have feeling in it, but he couldn't use it. Breathing was always a problem for him. He would have a tough time with breathing because the muscles weren't
pulmonary,
working properly.
of course.
I remember as a kid being a little embarrassed, that I had a father like this. And it used to drive me nuts, like when I would see like other kids laughing at him. I mean, I wanted to beat the shit out of those kids. I mean,
Yeah.
but when I saw that, and I used to say to my dad, like, hey, Dad, like, doesn't that bother you? And he says, no. I said, well, how come that doesn't bother you? He says, well, I think they have more problems than I have.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
He says, and he always used to, he was always like, little things bother little people. That was the thing that he always used to say. And
I like that. I like that.
I mean, so there was always like, he always had an answer for everything. And he was a very funny guy. I mean, a huge heart. And then as I got older, I started to. I mean, my friends were going to play ball with their parent, their fathers in the park and everything. I can never do that.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older, my friends never even really talked to their father. I used to sit down and actually have conversations with my dad, very interesting conversations, and fun conversations. And he would be the person you'd go to if you wanted a real answer to something, a real thought out answer, not some hogwash, and. So as I got older, I started to appreciate him more and more because of who he was and not his handicap. And then I got to the point where I didn't care if anybody was looking at him because I just didn't, go ahead, look at him.
It doesn't matter. Of course.
Go ahead.
Of course.
But I mean, there's been times you go in a restaurant where people are asked to change their tables because they didn't want to look at him.
Really?
Even though he wasn't a bad looking guy, but he was just disabled.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah. So some people have, all kinds of issues. But he was amazing, and he always encouraged me to do whatever I would want to do. So he was great.
So he was a pretty big influence.
Huge.
How about did he share the same love for show business and entertainment? Not as a person who wanted to be necessarily, but someone who appreciated, comedy, music, arts per se.
Right. Well, he really enjoyed comedy. And I remember in 1975, he told me, he says, you got to watch these guys on TV on Saturday night. You have to check these guys out. They are really, really funny. And I said, all right, well, we'll check them out. And, it was the original cast of SNL.
Wow.
And my dad was into it before they even got popular, and I think SNL didn't get popular until they started winning Emmy Awards,
I remember in the later 70s, that's amazing that your old man turned you onto Saturday Night Live. It's funny because your father and my father was born in the 20s, and maybe your dad was maybe
30s.
You're 30. Okay. My father-in-law was in 1935. So, and in Brooklyn, by the way. But, so I'm trying to just think of all the influences back then. That's pretty hip. Yeah. That your dad actually turned, and it wasn't something like any sort of generation gap right there.
Yeah. And he was into when he was younger, Mort Saul and Dick Gregory.
Yeah.
Dick Cavett and
Lenny.
Yeah. Lenny. Actually they thought he was great. That really was an influence, and even as a little kid, I remember, getting comedy albums, Class Clown, George Carlin, and Cheech and Chong's Big Bamboo.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You should have told me. I have the vinyl. I still have it.
Wow.
And because I have a lot of records.
You have the rolling paper in there?
Yeah, I might actually. I have the original Bamboo. Actually, Up in Smoke was on a couple of weeks ago, and I caught it late night, and I'm laughing so loud. It's obviously juvenile, but classic.
But funny. Great.
Yeah, but funny.
And when they talk about great comedy teams, you very rarely hear Cheech and Chong. Like, and they really should be. They really should be. One of the great comedy teams of all time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We might get hammered on that, but I'd have to say,
okay.
What are they? There's so many. There were so many back then.
You got Stephen Eady.
Right. Oh, Stephen E. Tremendous.
Very,
very,
hilarious.
very funny. Very, very funny, and they could really sing.
Oh yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about like Burns and Schreiber, Smothers Brothers. Smothers Brothers. You Smothers Brothers fan?
Great. Yes. Yeah. Really awesome.
Yeah, I love them. What about like Laughing? Were you a Laughing fan?
I was okay. I was all right with that.
Right. Exactly.
What I remember, my favorite sitcom was always All in the Family.
Yeah, of course.
I just thought that was just brilliant and so well done.
Yeah.
But I like all that stuff.
Right, absolutely.
It's done right.
So when did you start to perform? Really?
When I was, let's see, in my I became a DJ.
So you became a DJ prior to any of
first.
Okay, so you did the DJ thing first. Okay, because
right.
I didn't know
if that. I started getting my act together when I was 15, and then I did my first gigs when I was 16.
Right.
And then I did that for, I don't know, 28 years or something like that.
Right. Okay. So you did the DJ thing, the bar mitzvahs, the weddings, the parties, the whole 9 yards. Okay.
Yeah, I did about 3,000 and change bar mitzvahs and weddings and you name it, I did it.
Right. So I happen to know. I think I mentioned that. I happen to know that whole scene twofold. One, my dad was an arranger, and he had an office, and he played weddings, bar mitzvahs, that whole 9 yards as a band leader. But also, my real business is the promotional items business, T-shirts and all that. And I was doing a ton of bar and bat mitzvah favors. So I'm sure you know what that is all about. The DJs used to give stuff out, obviously, but you would buy the stuff themselves. But I'd have to deal, just like you, with the Meshuggah parents, which is, I think, an episode by itself.
Yes, definitely. I remember sitting at a table with the bar mitzvah families and them arguing over what song they were going to play.
Right.
When they called them up to the lighting, the candle lighting ceremony.
It was a big deal.
And I'm like back and forth, and I'm sitting there going, I can't believe this. And then they say, well, what about Grandma? What is she going to come up to? They start arguing about that. Then they get on the phone to call Grandma, and they're arguing with her on the phone. And then they hang up the phone. I said, well, what did Grandma say? Well, she's on her way over. So I'm like, oh, great.
That's great.
I'm going to be here for 6 hours.
Oh yeah, I know. When I used to deal with the people face to face back in the day, and the kid would be there. The kid's 12, 13. They don't want to deal, and the mother's picking everything out, blah blah blah. And I'm like, what do you want, Seth? What would you like? And then you get a little bit out, and the kid comes out with something completely different. And then they end up getting that,
Right.
It's really, thank God for the internet towards the end, because even though I had to deal with them, I dealt with them more through email and proofing and virtually, but they're still totally crazy. You had to deal with them straight up. So I can't imagine.
And I did all that advertising specialty stuff. I used to, hand out DJ Brett hats, and I had yo-yos, I had little mirrors, I had keychains, beach balls and T-shirts. I mean, bumper stickers.
Exactly.
I mean, I have all that stuff. I mean, and my dad talked me into doing that. Like he said, because I was just going to just order stuff from like an Oriental Trading, or,
right, or Rhode Island Novelty, Rhode Island Novelty.
I order from them all the time too.
Right.
And he says, but you should give people something with your name on it, so they know who you are. Put your phone number on there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I started doing that, and then also like, when I became a DJ, and he backed it up. Like I told him my idea, and as a kid, I was always telling my parents, like, oh, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that. And then and they would say, well, are you sure you want to do that? One idea was like, I want to build park benches and we'll sell them in the backyard, and they're like, I don't know. Do you really want to do that? All right, maybe I don't. So when I saw another DJ, really bizarre. I saw this DJ that I loved. The guy's in jail now.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
Not Yahtzee, not DJ Yahtzee.
No. I know who that is too.
Right. No, I know. Because you used to advertise in the Guide, right? In some of those magazines, right?
A couple of them over the years.
Yeah, me too. I used to do it too. Right.
Yeah. So I saw this guy, and I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. He was, and the DJ was playing songs during the band's breaks, and he got the crowd going more than the band did, and the band was great.
Sure.
So I said, that's what I want to do. And when I told my parents, they were like, okay. And I said, look, I'm going to go to parties. They're going to pay me. They're going to do this. And they were like, okay. And my parents basically, said, do you really want to support Brett in this venture? And my dad's like, yeah, what's the worst thing that can happen? He'll have great audio equipment, so,
right.
So let him do it. Let him try it. And I did. And it became very, very successful. I made a lot of money with it during the 80s.
Absolutely.
And they supported it all the way. And then my dad was like, how are you going to be different than the next guy? Why should they book you over somebody else? He said, you got to be different. We're going to build you a DJ booth. So we built a DJ booth, and none of the other DJs had booths.
Yeah, right.
To this day,
right.
I really, really think they took my dad's design and ran with it. It was never patented or anything. And because I saw a whole bunch of DJs, they would just put their equipment on top of a table, and that was the end of it. And I do think he was the first guy to build a DJ booth back in 1978, 79, somewhere around there. And then also I started to wear hats, different types of hats when I was playing. And I would play a tambourine. I was trying to do like the Chuck Berris thing from Gong Show.
Of course.
And so I wanted to become an entertainer. I wanted to become a personality because anybody can play records.
Agreed.
And that's what I did.
Agreed. No, yeah. I absolutely. And that's what's going to make the difference. And you're right. You get the party going. You do that. A good band always does. A good wedding band still rocks. Sometimes now I see some of the DJs at the weddings. They're not really involved as much. They're just kind of playing the music. Some are, some aren't. I'm not saying, but you always remember. You always remember the DJ or even if it was a band leader. You remember the front guy, and as an entertainer, whether or not the band leader could sometimes sing great, but he had somebody else that sang great, and he would do all his shtick, come up, cut the holler, the whole 9 yards, and he would run the party, and that was, I think, so you were able to really do that. So again, through the thing I'm seeing here, pivotal moments, you pop. Your dad really,
and for a guy who had learning disabilities, I did okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome Back Kotter was a learning disabled class.
love the Sweat Hogs.
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
That's the kind of class they would throw you in if you had issues.
Yes. They didn't know. They didn't know it was whether it was something new. Back then they didn't know. I'm sure now they have many, many more programs. Still not sure how they're assessing. It could be better in some ways, but obviously in some ways it's not. But I think that it's much broader now, and hopefully kids are getting a little better attention. So I wanted so the DJ was first. So you're rocking and rolling with the DJ. Right. Things are good. You're making some bread. Things are good. What about the career as far as taking it to like another level? Did you always have that desire underneath to say, I really need to get to the next rung?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be discovered as a DJ because I was playing even nightclubs and bars and stuff like that, and I had people buying tickets and to go to see me. So I'm thinking like, wow, I'm really popular, and how come I don't get discovered, like to do something? And I mean, I've had radio personalities would talk about me on the air, and I'm like, oh, geez, now I'm really going to get famous. And no, and now you understand that if somebody sees you as a DJ, they see you as a DJ. If I was in the corner playing spoons, they'd say, oh, that guy plays the spoons. They wouldn't think, oh, that guy playing the spoons, I bet he would be really great at directing television. Like they won't put that together.
Yeah.
Whatever they see is whatever is that's all that's in their head. So I thought I was going to get discovered, but I wanted to do more with that. And I tried some radio gigs. And then eventually I tried stand-up comedy.
Okay, so before that, so the radio gig, kind of like what we're doing now, like talking to people, like talk
Similar.
radio, or
Yeah, it was a little talk radio, and I also did some of the music things. And
oh, really? Local, like a local station?
yeah, local.
Right.
There was one local station, a really, really small station that I tried to work for, and then the guy said, "Look, you can't start at the top." And I'm like, "This is the top."
Yeah, they're right, right.
Yeah, I
Right.
thought this was the bottom.
Right.
You know, but I did work at a couple of stations for a very short period of time, and I could never make any money.
No, there's no money involved. It was more
So
for
I was like, "Well, how am I
the
going to pay for the gas and whatever to get here?" So
right.
there was like no money in it, and I kept trying to look for jobs with where I could make a couple of bucks. Not happening.
Right.
So I continued DJing, and it's where I made my money, and then I started to take acting classes and started
Right.
getting a little bit of the buzz or things are popping into my head that I like to entertain. I love that.
Right. So you're honing your skills a little bit more, and comedy was obviously a natural fit for you.
Yeah.
Was it?
I was funny. Yeah,
Was it?
no, it was.
Okay.
I was a funny kid. There were things that I would do that even at the dinner table, I would be able to impersonate different people and crack up the family.
Mhm.
Then like even in high school, I remember like setting up some gags, but I didn't actually do the gag, but I told somebody else to do it. I would talk somebody else into doing the stupid thing.
Impractical jokers.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I was kind of the guy who could orchestrate the joke, but I always had a sense of humor, and I would even use that in my DJ business as long as it was appropriate for the audience that I was playing for.
Yeah, that you could do. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So you're honing your skills. Paint the picture a little bit about how you kind of got into being stand up. Is that in terms of chronologically? Was the opportunity with SNL, which we'll get into, was that around this time, or first it was?
No, it was later.
Okay, so take us chronologically a little bit of when the entertainment / comedy started coming into power.
Okay. I guess I was in my early 20s when the DJ business was really rolling, was doing great.
Yeah.
And then I said, if I could talk in front of a crowd, there's probably other things I could do in front of a crowd. And I always loved comedy. I forgot to mention Richard Belzer was also like a guy that I just loved. I thought he was funny as hell.
Love Bells.
Yeah, the Bells. And I remember seeing him, a whole bunch of times down in the city, and just loving his work because it was just so sarcastic and so raw, and just great comedian. So I decided that I'm gonna put some material together. There was an open mic locally. And I said, I'm going to give it a shot. And because being young and inexperienced, I told my family and friends that I'm going to be doing comedy that night, and, want to
Right.
come out and see me.
Nyack or New City or Pearl
I
River,
did it was in
Nickelodeon,
Valley
Mr.
Cottage.
Mr. Pips.
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Rips.
Mr. Rips.
Pips was out, and I think where was Pips?
Oh, I don't know. You think?
But Mr. Rips.
Mr. Rips in Valley Cottage. Okay, I remember seeing
Yeah.
it in the good times. You used to see.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So go ahead.
So I get some material together, and I have my family and friends there, and all of a sudden, like they said, "Oh, our next guy, Brett Eidman." As I'm walking up to the stage, I'm like, "Oh my god!" I was terrified.
Of course.
And meanwhile, there's all people that I know there, and I've been a DJ for years already, and now like all of a sudden, I'm kind of like I'm crashing here, So I did I did my act. It was terrible. But family and friends will say, "Oh, you did pretty good." No, I didn't.
They'll love you no matter what.
It's terrible. And it was all shit humor. It was just like, stupid comparing going to the bathroom to a log flume, like that kind of stuff. It was just really ridiculous.
Right.
Lowbrow stuff. And so I did that there, and then I went to a couple of other places that were like makeshift, comedy nights, at like a regular pub. And I got really discouraged because I wasn't getting the laughs. Nobody was paying attention. It was just hell. So I said, all right, I'm going to let this rest for a while. I'm going to give up for a while. And I continued DJing. And then I said, you know what? I want to give comedy another shot.
Okay.
But I want to go to comedy clubs. I don't want to go to makeshift places and pubs and stuff. I want to go to real comedy. So I started to research places in Connecticut, and I saw some comedy clubs that had open mic night, and you had to audition to get in. I was like, wow, that's not really like a real open mic, but it's okay. So I went over and saw the show, and I thought these guys were great. And I said, I'd love to get in this because now I would have a steady place to work out material. So I auditioned, and the owner said, come back whenever you want.
Really? Okay. So
Yeah,
he dug you.
Yeah, and then and I'm the same bill with Lisa Lampanelli and Jim Gaffigan.
Wow.
All these guys are all doing open mic nights, together, and never thinking that any of us would make it.
Oh, that's a great story.
Especially Jim, like and Lisa too. There was a couple other people that were better than all
I
of
like
us.
Jim. I know what you're saying. Yeah, Jim really got his act together.
Jim's great.
I love him. I love him. He really
He's a nice guy too.
he seems like it. I don't know him, but he seemed like it, obviously.
I talked to him once in a blue moon, but I
Right.
since he's gotten so busy, he's not paying much attention to me anymore.
Yeah.
But he's a really good guy. So I got to spend a lot of time with him, and Lisa I talked to once in a while too. But I didn't see those coming, and there was another guy that used to do comedy with us who was fantastic, and he gave it up real quick. So I was like, wow, he gave it up. The guy that all of us think is going to make it.
Right.
But
well, you have to sacrifice. I mean, you do have to sacrifice. First of all, you got to have balls.
Right.
You got to have big balls, I think. And you had the big balls. Look, you went out there and you actually did it. The DJ thing is a different story. It's not, you can't, it might prepare you in terms of experience for getting in front of people and playing stuff. But this is really, you're going out there naked. And it's brutal, as you know. So you
can't hide behind the microphone stand.
Can't hide. So the balls.
The DJ, if you have nothing to say, you put a song on.
Yeah, put something on, then and while the song's playing, you'll hold on a second. Okay, just want to make sure. While the song's playing, you'll think of something to say in the next round. Of course, right. Of course. But the comedy thing obviously is much different. So that's pretty intense that you guys were all together in the same at the same time. So all right. So you had the balls. You got back on onto the horse, and you continued doing it. You continued. You were really, you're a single guy, obviously at the time.
Right.
No
girlfriends.
Yeah, girlfriends, but no one clamping down on you.
No. Well, there was one girl I dated that was ready to get married and stuff, and I wasn't. And I didn't know if it was just me not being ready to get married or me not being ready to marry her. I wasn't sure which it was, but either way, I wasn't ready.
Well, you're still young. You're still young,
right?
You're still young. I mean, relatively speaking, but you didn't have that on your radar. Okay, so you're willing to basically sacrifice what it's going to take to get there.
And I don't know. I don't know what that. I don't know what that is. I don't think anybody knows how. Like, what are you sacrificing? Are you ever going to get there?
Great question. Great conversation. So when you see people, let's just say entertainers that make it, quote unquote, make it, some are great geniuses, some are not that great, but they have some sort of intangible, but they're also now willing, when I say sacrifice, willing to do anything, anytime to get to where they want to go, which I think really means sacrificing any real life, whether it be money, relationship, I mean, it's a big ego thing also as well, but you have to really do that. Now with comedy, I think it's a different game a little bit because you have to really be good, correct?
Yes.
Or funny, or what do you think what do you think those tangible or intangible things that make it for somebody actually being a working comedian?
Well, I think they have to be saying something that the next guy's not saying.
Mm-hmm.
Their perspective has to be different, and it has to really hit home with people. And because you could do a million comedy shows, and the people leave and say, "Oh, that guy was great." But meanwhile, they forgot the guy's name, and they're never going to see him again. But if you're fantastic, and they're going to say that guy's name like, oh, we're going to go back. I got to tell my friends about him, and then we're going to go back and see him again. That's where that's what screws with comedians' heads, because they can go out and they can kill every night of the week, and still nobody knows who they are. They forget about them. You know, they just, there's something there that didn't connect, where these people are saying, this guy's that great that I want to tell all my friends about this guy, and I want to come back and see him again. So there's different levels of killing your audience, or different levels of how you hit your audience. It has to be, when people leave the room, they have to say, I can't wait to tell my friends about this guy.
Right.
That's what has to be there. If they just walk out saying, well, that was a funny show, and that's the end of it,
Not enough. Not enough.
It's not enough.
Now, what do you think? Let's go back into the head of the comedian. I mean, there are comics that are working comics that make money, make good livings, but not that many people know of them. Let's talk present day, because we're here, present day. I don't know. I'm not naming names, because I know a couple of guys that work the Orthodox Jewish circuit. You might know him.
Yeah.
Actually, his name is Modi. You know Modi Rosenthal? Shout out Modi, my brother. Shout out Modi. Yeah. And I just, they have a niche, quote unquote niche. Now, they're making money and they're doing what they love. But is it twofold? Is it they're making money doing what they love and they're happy with that? Or deep down inside, is it, do you want that accolade, the accolade of being a household word?
Well, it depends on the individual. I mean,
of course.
I mean, used to see, we were talking about, wedding bands and stuff like that. I mean, I used to run into guys playing in wedding bands, and they all wanted to be rock stars at some point. And they say, I'm doing weddings and bar mitzvahs. I really would have rather be at Madison Square Garden tonight, And I think comedians want to be the greatest comedians, that they can be, or be the greatest comedian alive today, But I think everybody's different. I really wanted to be successful. I wanted to be the best that I could. And, but I struggled with my stand-up. I just struggled with it. And I kept doing it, but I struggled.
What do you think the reason why was, what do you think, looking back now, was the main struggle, do you think?
The main struggle is having a thread going through your act. For me, I was just doing jokes, making the audience laugh, and that was kind of it. But there wasn't it has to be real. It has to be based in reality.
Like Chappelle?
Yeah.
Something like that? Like those guys, they like something like that.
Right. It's got to come from someplace very real. You had like Sebastian Maniscalco, who's the biggest thing in the world. Like his act. And first of all, there's a guy, who does it all really well. He's a great writer. He's an amazing performer. He's a good looking guy. He's a family guy.
Package.
He is everything, and if I was an agent or manager, that would be the first guy that I would sign, So I understand his success, and I think that, I was able to watch comedians and say, I know what they're missing, but I wasn't able to really pinpoint it in myself, what needed to be done. And I would take comedy classes and all this other stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Basically, those comedy classes are a waste of time, because you're either funny or you're not. And if you're funny, you can make yourself even funnier.
Yeah. Any mentors? Anybody? Did you lean on anybody? I know it's like friendly comp, but nobody's really given you.
A couple of people along the way have given me some advice that I thought was really good. There's this one guy who lives out in California named Peter Charkalis, who is a comedy writer who I met during open mics. And so one night after a show, I said, Peter, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about my material and see like what's going on here. So he was looking through, we sat down and he says, well, here's this joke needed this joke needed that. He said, this joke sucks. He says, that's why you're not getting laughs. So I get rid of this joke. And I said, well, what do you do? He was writing for Leno and Letterman and he says, well, what I do, he says, for monologue writing is I take two current events and I tried to find a common thread. So, the pandemic would be one, and then maybe the wear your mask, or I don't know what the two, but that's what he would do. He'd take two popular current events and what do they have in common, and that's where he's going for the joke. So each person's different, and then then some people would. I mean, it was material that I would do that I'd have to ask a certain group of people. You find that offensive, or you think I'm okay with it?
Mm.
And most of the time it was like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I did an African American joke in my act that I cleared with a couple of guys that I know who were African American, which we didn't even call them African American back then. They were black guys. And I said, I said to them, like, is this offensive or is this okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they were both like, it's okay. I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And then one night I did the joke, and then I'm walking out of the club, and there's some people that wanted to beat the shit out of me.
Yeah, well,
you're going in the parking lot.
Yeah, you're always going to take that risk. Do you? So you did the comedy thing. Did you ever really work stand up regularly to your liking?
Sort of. I mean, I wasn't making money, but I was doing like gigs all over the place.
Right.
And also doing the open mics and grabbing stage time wherever I could.
How long did you do it for until you said to yourself, I gotta, it's not really making it for me personally, for you personally, and I got to maybe change course, because you are an entertainer, you are funny, there are things you can, there are things you can offer, like almost like an MC in a way, even though there's probably no real path for that, a real new avenue.
Well, I mean, some guys are great at crowd work, and which I actually was really good at.
That's what I think you would be.
Yeah, that was pretty good, but there's no money in that. That's the least amount of money. The headline is getting paid, hopefully decent money, and then the middle act gets a little less, and the MC is like, throw the MC a couple of bucks. So I was always tossed, like, I was trying to get, it's almost like you're always trying to get something else. Whatever you're doing, you want to be someplace else.
Yeah.
The commercial photographers that I used to know, they wanted to get into the wedding and bar mitzvah business. The bar mitzvah wedding business guys want to get into commercial photography. Everybody wants to be someplace else.
Right.
Right. So that's true. So I wanted to be John Belushi. I wanted to be, and I was like, I'm doing stand-up. I did some improv in New York City with an organization called Chicago City Limits.
Mm-hmm.
I think they may be still around, but not doing much.
Definitely heard.
Because there's all these other improv companies and stuff. And but I was like, I don't know. This doesn't seem like it's the stuff they're doing on Saturday Night Live. So one time, I'm thinking like, well, where are my heroes from? Bill Murray, where's he from? Where's John Belushi from? Where's Gilda Radner from? Where's all these guys? Where'd they come from? They're not stand-up comedians. So, they come from the Chicago Second City.
Correct.
So I said, I got to go out there because that's where I really feel that I fit. That's where I belong. Because that's the kind of comedy I want to do. More than stand-up, more than anything. I want to be John Belushi. Okay.
So I totally get it. So it's like sketch comedy and making people laugh that way, which is great. And there is an avenue for that, or there was. When is this? So when is this? This is Chicago. What year is this? How old are you?
Late 80s.
All right. So this is already, so it says late 80s. And all right, I know the age already. So, and you're still single?
Yes.
You're still single at this point. Okay.
Yes.
So late 80s, you're still single. You're a young guy. Paint it. Let's hear it.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So I said to my girlfriend at the time, I said, let's go to Chicago and let's go see the Second City. I'd like to see where it is. I'd like to talk to some people and everything else. So she says, okay,
right,
you're paying for the ticket.
Of course.
So I'll go. So we flew out to Chicago and I went to the Second City and I was like, wow, this is where, I'm standing outside the place going, oh my God, this is like, this is it,
Thanks so much for listening. Big shout outs to the crew behind the scenes, John Hart, Ian Lidovich, Russ McMahon, and of course my wife Jill. Don't forget to smash that like button, comment and subscribe, and follow at Grind and Pivot. You already know we appreciate you. Later, son.